Welcome to Culture Plus Horses, the April installment of the Norton Center's Culture Plus series. My name is Steve Hoffman, and I'm the Executive Director of Centre College's Norton Center for the Arts. Today, I am in Danville, Kentucky on the ancestral lands of the Cherokee, Shawnee, Shawnee, Yuchi, Adena, and Hopewell nations. We are thrilled you have chosen to spend the next hour or so with our curated panel of thought leaders and practitioners who will share their stories and ideas related to how we as Kentuckians value the horse industry from a cultural perspective. So thank you for joining us. The Culture Plus series is part of the Norton Center's Creative Conversations program, which is supported by an endowed gift by 1995 Centre College graduate, Dr. Jeff Johnson and Ken Michael. Now I would like to introduce Molly Baker, the Norton Center Engagement Services Manager. Molly.
Hi, everyone. To echo Steve, thank you so much for being here today. And thanks to all of our panelists for joining. It's going to be a great program and we've been really excited. So thanks for being here. Just as usual, I have a few logistical things I want to quickly go over. You have a couple of viewing options. If you select the speaker view, then you will have the person who's actually speaking be prominently displayed on your screen. If you select gallery view, you'll have several windows viewable at once. We do have all of our panelists pinned to the top page. So if you select gallery view, you'll see all the panelists at once as they're speaking. I also want to take a moment to thank Renee Chappell, tonight's ASL interpreter, for being here with us tonight. So if you will find her services useful, please be sure you select the gallery view option and pin her window, and that will make sure that you're able to view her during the program. Finally, you'll notice that you've been muted, and that doesn't mean you're not going to have a chance to ask some questions towards the end of the program. So if you would like to submit a question at any time for any of the panelists or for the group, just chat your question directly to Matt Overing. Matt will collect those questions and field them to our moderator, KatieAnn. And if we aren't able to get to all the questions, we'll do our best to follow up with you at a later time. So that's all for me. I'll turn it back over to Steve.
Thanks, Molly. And thanks to the entire Norton Center staff for making this program happen. Now it's with great pleasure that I introduce Centre College's president, Dr. Milton Moreland, for an official welcome. President Moreland, who just started about a year ago, thank you so much for your ongoing support of cultural programs in our community and on campus, especially now.
Thanks, Steve. It's wonderful to be at another Norton Center program. This is an awesome topic and timely and, of course, regionally relevant, not just to Centre College, our students, faculty, and staff, but also we love to be an access point for culture and great performances to our broader community. So, Steve, we can't wait to get back in person at the Norton Center, and I know you're planning a great set of programs for next year that you'll be able to announce soon. So, looking forward to being back in person, but we're so grateful to you and all of the Norton Center staff for presenting these Zoom online access points for us this year. And I have enjoyed each and every one of them. So it's quite a set of programs. Congratulations. I am happy to introduce our moderator, who is a faculty member at Centre, but also comes to us with a set of credentials, which I think will be quite interesting to you as we embark on this topic. KatieAnn Skogsberg grew up showing horses, following in her big sister's footsteps, starting with 4-H and then competing in breed-specific quarter horse shows. By the time she was 14, she had started working as a catch rider for professional trainers who had more horses than they could show. At 16, she started giving lessons and taking in horses for training. She qualified for the American Quarter Horse Youth World Championship show twice, the second time with 2 horses that she had trained on her own. In her 20s, she worked as an assistant to several trainers who were multiple-time world champions, including Dan Roser of Idaho, where KatieAnn and I grew up, only a few miles away from each other. So take that. Lynn Salvatore Palm of Michigan, another trainer who she worked with, championship trainer, and Steve and Carol Metcalf of Washington and Texas. After working as an assistant trainer and competing at a national level, she returned to Idaho, had a successful career coaching riders and training horses to several state and regional level award winners. After this illustrious career, not to be stopped, guess what? She returned to university and to study of psychology, fell in love with neuroscience, and hasn't competed in the horse arena since. But she's, I'm sure, still in love with horses and training. KatieAnn joined our faculty here at Centre College in 2008 and is now an associate professor of neuroscience and was named a Centre Scholar, a high achievement here in 2013. So without further ado, I turn it to Professor Skogsberg.
Thank you, Dr. Moreland and President Moreland. I don't know if I've ever been introduced that way, certainly not in an academic situation. So, but I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to introduce our guests this evening. I'm going to just go ahead and introduce them in order. We are joined this evening by Blair Newsome, who is the founder and executive director of Hooves of Hope. Ann Hardy, who is the executive director of Horse Country. Amy, and she told me how to say this earlier, and I'm afraid I just suddenly blanked on it. Beisel, who is the museum director of the International Museum of the Horse. Greg Harbut, who's the owner of Harbut Bloodstock, and Greg Harbut of Harbut Bloodstock. There we go. I'm tripping over all of my words already. So the overview for tonight is that whether they're racing in the Kentucky Derby or being reared on a personal farm, horses are a major part of Kentucky culture. But how does Kentucky horse culture embrace the arts and culture? This program will explore the ways in which Kentucky's relationship with horses is celebrated through the work of through the work of all these individuals for whom the horse has been a muse and a focus of their careers. So basically, each program is going to come from a different, or each panelist in this program is going to come from a different sector of Kentucky's vibrant horse industry and has a unique perspective on how the horse relates to the state's larger cultural narrative. Collectively, the experiences and stories of these panelists will help us as the audience form a clear picture of the horse's significance and the ways in which the industry is woven into our region's cultural fabric. So as I said earlier, our panelists come from different areas, and to scaffold this discussion, each panelist will talk about their connection with the horse and their many different roles. Blair from Hooves of Hope will talk about the horse as healer. Greg will talk about the horse as the athlete. Amy will talk about the aesthetic or symbolic relationship of the horse, and Ann will talk about the horse as an experience. But to start off, I have a question that I'd like to share with everyone, in each person in the group, and I think we'll go in that order, starting off with Blair. For you, how does the horse intersect with the culture in the state of Kentucky? So from your perspective, what do you see this intersection or this connection?
I'm sorry, say again?
So how does the horse intersect with the culture in the state of Kentucky from your perspective and your experience?
When you say intersect, how do you, I'm not sure how to answer that.
Okay, as a cultural representation, or how do you see, let's go ahead and talk about, we'll go ahead and move on to a question that's maybe a little more specific for you. Since you're the founder and the director of Hooves of Hope, and you focus on using horses to help people through their, who may have challenges, physical challenges or emotional challenges, how does that horse represent, how does that make the connection And how is Kentucky unique for that connection?
Well, I mean, Kentucky being that you're the horse capital. Olivia, shut that. Sorry, that my other computer's echoing. I'm sorry, hold on one sec. Can we,
That's all right.
I gotta fix that, my technology issues. Hold on one sec. I'm so sorry.
I tell you what, we'll go ahead and I'll give you a chance to address that, and I'll go ahead and see if Greg would like to share his insights on how the horse intersects with culture and how his area of the equine industry connects with has a special connection with Kentucky.
Okay, sorry about that. I was muted, but thank you very much, Professor Skogsberg. Very excited to be here on the panel with the fellow distinguished panelists. But in reference how the horse correlates to what Kentucky is, especially in my endeavor, being a bloodstock agent, the horse in racing and breeding, Kentucky is considered the horse capital of the world. So many people from an international standpoint as well as domestic standpoint actively come to Kentucky to either purchase horses, race horses, or breed horses and then take them outside of the world, because we have some of the best genetic pools when it comes to stallion and mares, and we have some of the best land to race horses on. So the horse is very vital to not only local Kentuckians, but from an international standpoint, it's very dear to people in my particular discipline.
All right, great, thank you. I had the same issue. I had to go look for the mute button. And I do this twice a day, every day. So thank you very much for that. Amy, would you like to chime in on how you feel that the horse intersects with the culture of Kentucky?
Sure. Well, being in a history museum that focuses specifically on the horse, I see it from a historical standpoint, and in Kentucky in particular, it's a part of our heritage, and it has been since Kentucky's inception. So, I can go back through my museum or through the history of Kentucky and trace, the depth that the horse has been in the state and everything that it's brought to it and how that's changed over time. So a lot of it applies also to what Greg said about it being a great place just geologically to raise horses, I guess physically, and how that has just historically influenced our state overall.
Great, thank you. And Ann, how do you feel? And I believe your business is really deeply invested in the culture and connection of horses. How do you see this as an intersection?
Sure. Visit Horse Country is built on the idea that the culture of Kentucky, and especially our horse culture, is one that is uniquely desirable to folks that might not have an opportunity to experience it daily the way that we do. And I think, the experiences in horse country are also, as many in this group have mentioned, about history and about the whole story of the horse, the industry, the land, the people. And so when we think about the cultural intersection, it really drives down into so many levels. Steve mentioned the land of the Adena tribe. There is a farm in Kentucky that is named for the Adena tribe. When we think about the different work that's been done by so many people in the thoroughbred industry, certainly, but also, as Greg mentioned, internationally, Kentucky is a power player in especially the thoroughbred industry. And so having such an international contingent of folks who regularly spend time in, invest in, and value Kentucky makes that intersection of horse and Kentucky really unique and beneficial for the culture, for the economy, and for our tourism opportunities.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, I was going to circle back around to see if Blair is available. I don't see her on the screen at the moment. So I'll give her a chance to decide what she wants to do. And when she's ready, I'll watch for you to pop up, and we'll go ahead and keep working. I'm going to return to Greg. As a third generation horseman, you say you've inherited your love of horses and the industry from your predecessors, especially your great grandfather, Will Harbut, who was the groom to Man of War. And I have to say, I was a little starstruck when I read that connection. In your own agency, Harbut Bloodstock, you found international success in the thoroughbred market and provide services relating to horse management and horse evaluations. We know that your family's legacy was a big part of what motivated you to build a career in the horse industry. Can you tell us more about why following in the footsteps of your forefathers was so important to you and how it shaped your career?
Great question. From the time that I can remember, I've always had a love and affinity for horses. I didn't have the privilege to meet my great-grandfather, as you had mentioned, it was Will Harbut, the groom of Man of War. I had a very close relationship with my grandfather, Tom Harbut, who was very well-noted horseman in his own right. But I was very fortunate to be able to be around him, to learn a lot of horsemanship traits from him, and just being able to attend riding camps and things of that nature as an adolescent child. I was very fortunate to be selected on an international horse management program sponsored by Sheikh Mohammed, where I was afforded the opportunity to travel internationally and learn the business perspective as well as international horsemanship. And from there, I worked for a local firm, the Stallion Company, and doing what I do now, which is selecting athletes as well as breeding stocks for a global consortium of clientele. I was really able to hone in my craft, and I've been the proprietor and president of Harbut Bloodstock for the last 10 years. It's been a great endeavor. It's a love that I have, so I really don't look at it as a job. It's something that I truly love. And it's very rewarding to see Kentucky put on an international as well as domestic stage, coming out of Lexington, Versailles, Paris, things of that nature, and see these horses going and compete on a global spectrum. But it's just a love that I've had, as a third generation African-American horseman. That's some great pride that I take in as well. When you look at the contributions that African-American horsemen have made, it's immense. When you look at the Kentucky Derby being ran in 1875, the first Kentucky Derby winner was trained and ridden by African-American connections. That's something that I take great pride in, as well as my own family connection to the horse with my great-grandfather, as well as my grandfather. One thing a lot of people don't know, my grandfather actually owned a horse that participated in the 1962 Kentucky Derby, and I was very fortunate last year to be a co-owner of a horse that participated in last year's edition. So that was something that I was very excited about, and to sort of bring back into the media attention the contributions that African Americans made before me. So
that's fantastic. Actually, that makes it a great segue to a question that I would like to ask of Amy. In 2018, the International Museum of the Horse opened a permanent exhibition devoted to telling the story of the forgotten contributions of African Americans to the Kentucky's horse industry. I actually got to see this display not too long after it originally started with my sister, who was visiting from out of state. The museum also has an online archive that aims to gather photos and documents and oral histories of African Americans whose work has driven the horse industry in the past and the present. So through projects like these, how do you tell me more about these projects is really what I want to know about. I have a script written here for the question, but I just want to know more.
Well, I can tell you that it's a project that started a long time ago. Actually, the research for the exhibit, The Black Horseman of the Kentucky Turf, started even before I joined the museum in 2013. And it's a passion project of our former director, Bill Cook, who kind of stumbled upon a little bit of information that wasn't widely known and shared, which was about, I think it was the first 13 or 15 Kentucky Derbies being won by African-American jockeys. And he just expanded. He took that information and just ran with it. And as a team, we ended up finding, the ball just kept rolling and growing like it's snowball effect, till we had enough information that we thought, this really deserves some recognition. African Americans, what we were finding is that they were instrumental in building the thoroughbred industry in Kentucky and bringing it, helping to bring these owners and the races and the horses to prominence. So they were really some of the original sports figures in the United States. Yeah, so that's kind of how the exhibit started. And from there, what happened is that we started finding so many individuals who were involved in the rise of the horse industry, not only in Kentucky, but throughout the United States, African Americans who weren't getting recognition for the work that they were doing, or very little recognition. And we decided to start an archive that would give this information a place to live, a place where people could go, sort of one place to find out about the history of African Americans in the horse industry, not only in Kentucky, but throughout the United States. And so it just keeps growing. Every day we learn something new, and every day there's more and more information to research and add to the website. And we're building a great, the museum is becoming part of a great community that's already out there, that we were never fortunate enough to be a part of before. And it's growing is all I can say. So we're super excited about that. The website is live now, and every month more and more information is added to it, because we just can't, there's not enough space in the museum to recognize all the individuals who deserve recognition.
Great. So I'm glad to hear that the website is up and growing. And if individuals have material that they want to reach out to you and contribute, they can just go to the Museum of the Horse website and make contact.
Yes, you can go to imh.org, or you can visit the Chronicle of African Americans in the Horse Industry website, which is at africanamericanhorsestories.org.
Okay, thank you. I'm muted. Yes, I realized that. Sorry. Okay, so thank you very much. And thank you for the information. All right, building off of this, I want to go to Ann. With you're the executive director of Horse Country, a nonprofit organization that puts people in touch with the horse industry through unique and diverse tours. And according to your website, your ultimate goal is to create emotional experiences by sharing the story of horses, the land, and the people with your guests, and ultimately to develop fans of farms and clinics through tourism experiences. We've heard a little bit about, and you kind of teased earlier about, one of the farms that was on an ancestral property. I'm curious about some of the, surprising or unique or special tours that might help, bring out some of the things that maybe are not as obvious. We think about the big, the tours. I went on a tour when I was dating my husband, well, before he was my husband, but that was one of the things that you do when you come to Kentucky. But tell us about, some of the unique or really interesting things that you have to offer.
Sure. Well, I came prepared for this. Because we are in the midst. Horse Country has been around for about 7 years now, 6.5, 7 years, and was strongly supported by a Centre alum, Mary Quinn Kerbaugh-Raymer, and she was on our initial board. So when we first started, there were a lot of those tours that you all would be familiar with that we still have that are absolute classics. You go and visit Claiborne and you see the stallions, or you go to Sheikh Mohammed's farm, Godolphin, and you get to see his stallions. That's a really popular experience. But since then, we have started to really expand the offerings, and they now exist that you can go and visit with mares and foals. You can go scratch noses and see those mamas. We do a lot more private tours now where you can really customize those experiences at different locations. So we've had photography tours, sunrise tours. We are constantly working to try and tell more of the stories of the people that are around. And I will share with you all, because this is just too good to pass up, we are getting ready to launch a new experience that's going to be at the Kentucky Equine Adoption Center. And that is a location that cares for all breeds of horses that are in need of homes. And those guys are great ambassadors for any of our equine sports in Kentucky, but also for the way that we treat and care for our equine athletes, which is a really critical message. And so if you will notice, our lady to the far left is Miss Mary Quinn, participating in a pilot of this program, which is an equine assisted learning program that can be secured for small groups, friend groups, corporate groups. And it's really harnessing what is so engaging about the horse, which is you can tell no tales to these animals. They are big and they're smart and they don't take any flack from anybody. So having an opportunity with a horse that's maybe not a thoroughbred, that is this very highly valued, prized, finely honed athlete, but rather getting to experience a little bit more hands-on. Those have been some really exciting experiences that we've offered over the last couple of years, and it really helps folks to engage with and identify with the whole story of that horse.
Excellent, thank you. That was great to have the show and tell pictures and the center connection. I didn't know about that, so that's great. I believe we have Blair back again. I was wondering, Blair, let me see. I'm interested. There you are. I can see you now. You're the founder and executive director of Hooves of Hope, which is an organization in Kentucky that helps people with varying intellectual and physical disabilities and disorders through equine therapy. Can you tell us a little more about your work and what you do and you know, anything else about your work that you would like to share with us?
Yes. Yes, Hooves of Hope is a nonprofit that started in 2006, and we work with children and adults with special needs from ages 4 and up. And we do therapeutic riding, we do a veterans program, we do an at-risk youth program, and we also have a hippotherapy program. And I have a special guest here that's wanting to play with me, so I'm sorry for the distraction. A lot of what we're working with is just the incredible the horses are incredibly intelligent, and as Ann was talking about earlier, how well they can read your emotions and your body language and stuff like that. And so to use them on a mental health side of it is incredible. They basically mirror your body language and your emotions. And I don't think that people realize how intuitive they are into your emotions. And so on a mental health side of it, there's some things that will happen in a session with a horse that you wouldn't probably normally get within a therapy session that's in a room, you know, and just talking to a therapist. That horse can really open up some topics that probably wouldn't normally happen.
So I notice you maybe have one of your special therapists there. Is this our special guest?
Yes, this is the special guest.
And our special guest, what's her name?
Libby.
This is Libby.
And she's a 2-year-old mini, and she might now be 30 inches tall. She was 28 inches tall when we first got her. So she is full grown. She is going to be basically one of our mini mobile programs that we will take to nursing homes and to schools and to universities and to places like the VA. If they can't come here, we'll take them. So she's in training. So as you know, as you can see, she's 2 years old. So sometimes she kind of has this wants to play attitude. So yeah, this is our future right here. This is our future program of ours, is to be able to go and travel with her and take her. Yes, that's me you're talking about. So when we do her training, we've taken her out to like Hobby Lobby and Tractor Supply and to the universities, and she's in our office right now just having to learn how to stand still and be patient and not get into everything.
And I'm sure it takes a special personality of a horse, and then also a special person to be able to work with these horses. Yeah. I'm going to follow up just a little bit while we have you. how did you get into this field?
Horses for me have been a part of my life. Let me try and make it so you can just see there we go. They've been a part of my life. I was riding probably before I could walk, and then was showing horses and doing that kind of stuff. So they've always been a part of my life. I went away from it for a little while and realized that something was missing and came back into it. And horses kept me out of trouble. If I hadn't had horses in my life, I would have gotten into probably made some bad decisions in my life. And so I know how much they can do for people. So when I came back into it, I was the horse side of it. I didn't realize that I was actually going to be running the nonprofit. I had the horse knowledge in the background, and so that's how I came into it. And then founded Hooves of Hope and started out with just a summer program to now year-round with 5 current programs running to hopefully a 6th one with this little one right here, Libby.
That's great. Thank you very much. And that's a question that, and I admit I may be going a little off script here, but it is a question that I had of all of our panelists. I think I'll come back to Greg. You did give us a little bit of background on how you got involved, but you know, a lot of people like Blair and I, you know, were involved in horses with kids and then realized, well, I'm not really sure what kind of career I'm going to be able to make out of this. How did you decide and discover that this was going to be a career opportunity for you?
I was very fortunate, as I mentioned before. Sheikh Mohammed, who's the ruler of Dubai, sponsors an international program where they take 12 students every year from across the world. And you basically get exposed to every aspect and component of the thoroughbred business. And so I was pretty much exposed and thrust to a lot of roles, and you know, ultimately decided upon being a bloodstock agent. Initially thought I wanted to be a horse trainer, but after doing an internship and having to wake up at 3:30 in the morning, 7 days a week, I quickly discovered that I better find something else. So by being a bloodstock agent, I still have a lot of interactions with the horse trainers, with the jockeys. I still am able to go to the track, but a schedule that's a lot more conducive to my liking. But really, the international program that I was on helped propel me into what I'm doing now.
Well, and that leads me to a follow-up question. Earlier this year, it was announced that you were going to head an equine residency program at Wilberforce University. So providing a similar kind of entry point for other individuals into the career. So Wilberforce University is the nation's first private HBCU. Can you tell us more about this program and its mission and what you're hoping to accomplish through this?
Well, it's a great concept that has initially started, and I hope more HBCUs will sort of jump on board, and the industry has really embraced this. But it's a chance for the industry to bring exposure and awareness to a segment of minorities that may not necessarily be aware of the horse racing industry, to be able to go in and educate the students and to show them the different career paths that is available within the industry. A lot of people think of the horse industry as you have to work hands-on, but there's so much more components, whether it be legal, marketing, accounting, things of that nature that really goes on behind the scenes with the business. So we just wanted to expose that to students that may not necessarily, you know, we take for granted living in Kentucky what horse racing is. Once you get outside of Kentucky, it's not easily embraced as it is here. So, you know, Wilberforce was a university that we teamed up with. We're looking forward to teaming up with a lot more HBCUs across the nation and really just telling them about the thriving industry that we have right here in Kentucky.
Great. I'm going to ask this question of the rest of my panelists too. So Amy, could you give us an idea of first, you know, how did you find your career path into working at the Museum of the Horse? And then also maybe what, for people that are interested in this area or maybe learning about, you know, the art and culture component, what the museum might have to offer them. So it's kind of a two-pronged question, but the first, how did you get there? And second, if somebody wanted to you know, pursue this museum thing as a career, what might the Museum of the Horse offer them?
Right. So I didn't start out my career thinking I was going to work here. It was all very serendipitous. I'm from Lexington originally, but I started my career in the Northeast, and I was really passionate about art history and also chemistry. And I thought I was going to be an art conservator. And I worked in that field for a short amount of time and decided it wasn't for me. And so I took a different path because I was still very passionate about museums and their missions, that how they educate people and how they inform people. And so I ended up moving into more of the collections focused field, and then segued into a management, into management and leadership opportunities. So it all happened very organically, but I did have to work my way up. I sort of started at the bottom, very, very green, and worked my way up and around the country in different museums, and ended up coming back here because I wanted to raise my family back in Kentucky, where I was from. And then how would someone go about getting into the museum career, or into what opportunities the museum, the International Museum of the Horse, could offer? I would say, if you're passionate about history, study history. If you're passionate about people and their cultures, study anthropology. If you're passionate about science, do science. There are museum specific programs out there that you can go into, but let your passion drive you first, and let that museum experience come second, because that's what's going to sustain you in a museum career, is your passion for what you're going to be doing. And of course, if anyone's interested in learning more or experiencing a museum environment from a work perspective or a behind the scenes perspective, you can always come and volunteer with us through the Kentucky Horse Park volunteer website, and specify that you'd like to work with the museum. Or we also offer internships, both semesters and over the summer, that can help bring you in and see things from a different perspective, and also gain some real world experience to find out if it's something that you really want to do. So
that's great. Yeah, internships are a great experience. I think all of you have, and I haven't gotten to Ann yet, but I'll come back, but said that, there was something you thought you wanted to do, and then once you started doing it, you're like, not sure that's what I want to do. So internships are a great experience to say, yeah, this is really what I love, or maybe that's not what I thought it was going to be. So, Ann, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this field, and maybe, if somebody wanted to follow in your footsteps, what kind of advice you would give to them?
I don't know if I could give advice for following in the footsteps of horse country. It was a wonderful opportunity that presented itself to Amy's point, very serendipitous timing. I am from Indianapolis, Indiana, and so I did not grow up around horses. I rode very briefly at a PE elective in college. I think that horses are amazing, but I don't have this horsemanship background like so many of you on the call today. I do think it's interesting. I spent my career doing a number of different things. I worked in public relations. I worked in journalism. I was a pharmaceutical sales rep. I had a career that spanned a lot of different things, and just kind of chased down a lot of different interests. My husband and I, though, when we married, ended up moving. Greg, you might recognize this place. It's been a few years back, but this is actually Zabil Stables in Dubai. And when my husband and I married and moved overseas, we lived in the Middle East and studied Arabic for a little while. And when I got to Dubai, of course, it's completely different than Kentucky. But when we had the opportunity to visit the stables, I was standing there. And I mean, mind you, I have not seen rain in 6 months. There is no such thing as seasons. There's hot and hotter. And then I get to this place and I'm surrounded by green grass, and there's trees and there's horses. And all of a sudden I felt so at home. I'd lived in Lexington at that point before we moved for about 10 or 12 years. And I felt so homesick when I got to this farm and when we got to have a chance to visit. And so I think that's when it hit me that this is a huge part of my background in a way, because I loved it and missed it, even though I hadn't really known it and hadn't really had a place there. And I share that because when horse country was conceived by the industry, members who make up our membership, the idea was that there are so many people in our community and in the world who would love to have an opportunity to visit these storied places, but so often the gates were kind of closed. And so when horse country came up, I was like, I'm one of those people who would have loved to have that experience. And so really it's tourism, but with this horse adjacency. And I really have a hope and a vision that as Kentucky grows horse country, the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, lots of other historical pursuits, especially, that there will be more and more jobs created in storytelling and how that plays in tourism. So again, to Amy's point and to Greg's, find out some things that you like and then find a way to integrate those things together. And again, I think that storytelling and the history of Kentucky, especially those signature industries, are on the up and provide so much opportunity for people who are passionate enough to invest in them and chase them down.
Great, thank you very much. I see that Blair has her camera off, but I'm going to circle back and if you're able to, okay, great, there you are. Even got our special therapist there too. Blair, there's two questions I have for you. First, this actually is one of the ones that's coming in from the audience. I'm curious if, the question they had was, looking back, what would you tell your younger self as far as, about, where you are now? And I'm going to double barrel this. First, tell me, looking back, what you would tell your younger self. And the second thing I'm going to then circle around and ask all of the panelists is, are there any opportunities for, and Aunt Amy already kind of touched on this, but are there any opportunities, if there's Center College students that are interested in this kind of stuff, or even younger, we have viewers from all over today, younger high school students or anything like that, that are interested in this field. Are there opportunities for volunteer and experience? But first, what would you tell your younger self? That's always a great question.
Honestly, my biggest thing that I would, and I don't want to say regret, but I wish that I had known at the time this is where I was going to be, was to take business classes to run a nonprofit. That was one thing that I didn't do. Again, I was in horses. I went into sports medicine, was my main career. Actually, I was an athletic trainer at Center College for a little while when I first graduated. And then I went to school to do equine therapy, which is the physical therapy, therapeutic ultrasound and stuff on horses. I was working at the racetrack and was still doing this in the summer, and then just couldn't get enough of doing this equine assisted therapy. So it came my full-time job, started the nonprofit. But if I had learned how to do the running of the business side of it, not just the horse side of it, that is what I would like to tell anybody that wants to get into this. Make sure that you take classes in that. And then opportunities for here at Hooves of Hope, we're always welcome to volunteers. You do not have to have horse experience. There's other ways that you can volunteer outside of just helping in the horse side of it, in the lessons. There's always fundraisers and stuff. We do have internships. We've had interns from 5 different universities or colleges in the area. So there's always those ways to get involved, come out and take a tour. So yeah, we've got plenty of ways that people in the community can get involved.
Great. And it just so happens that Center has started a business program, right? Perfect little pitch there. So
I should come take some classes.
There you go. And only if you bring Libby. Greg, do you have anything that you would suggest that opportunities for college students or younger that want to get any recommendations or suggestions, things that they could explore?
I personally take on an intern a year, and many of my fellow agents do that as well. The thoroughbred industry is very welcoming and accommodating. So I would just, it's a numbers game. I may not necessarily have the room to accommodate an intern, but there may be a friend of mine that I know, but we're very welcoming. Just reach out and, someone, if they cannot take you on personally, will usually recommend you to someone and connect you. But it's a great opportunity if the young students want to put in the work.
Thank you. Ann, Are there opportunities to learn about that field?
Absolutely. Yeah. Horse country was pretty severely impacted by the pandemic. So we did have to discontinue our internship program for a period of time, but we will be relaunching it and typically take an intern a semester. And that can be focused in any number of areas. So we have internships. We are also growing a program of referring tour guides to work part-time at the farms as we're reopening tours. So we're always trying to get interested folks who have some, interest in storytelling and good personality and good with people. We're always open to that.
Great. And Amy, I know you already mentioned some of the internship, or I think you mentioned internships. So is there anything you want to add to that?
I mean, we typically take one or two interns a semester and then over the summer. But we also have seasonal positions available in the museum as well. We're hiring currently for a seasonal position that would help out and be sort of a museum assistant over the summer months when we're very, very busy. So that's another great way to come in and just get some real hands-on experience and also get paid for it. So that's good.
That's always appealing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a turn here and come back to Greg. One of the questions that came in from the chat was, what is the highlight? You mentioned running in the Derby, but I jumped to the assumption that might be the highlight of your career. But what would you define as being the highlight of your career so far?
Well, I think the Derby is very hard to top. So, I consider myself very fortunate to have gone there and to, possibly have the chance to get back would be over the moon. There's full crop is shrinking, but there's about 25 to 28,000 horses born every year. And out of that, only 20 get in the starting gate, and you only have one chance a year to get that. But, I've been associated with a lot of horses that have won grade 1 races. I've been very fortunate to buy some of the bigger mares from my Japanese clientele, but just with the family connection of my grandfather owning a horse in the 62 Kentucky Derby and me having one last year, that would be tough to beat on so many reasons. So I would definitely say that experience.
Great, thank you. Blair, if you're available, I was wondering, I'll give her a moment to check in here. I'll come back to Blair. How's that? Oh, nope, she's there. Okay. I was wondering if there was any particular, special experience. I know you work with a lot of different clients, and I am actually the pre-physical therapy advisor here at Center. And oftentimes, the students say that one of the most moving things for them is working with individuals and seeing, gains. And I was wondering if you have any particular stories that stand out for you of people that you can talk about that, that stand out for you as really making your career very rewarding. And you're muted, just in case.
I'm sorry, technology is not my thing. There are so many different stories that I could tell. Probably the most recent one is we have a young boy that's been riding with us for a few years. He's on the autism spectrum. And his biggest thing that he just came to realize was working with the different horses. Like, he's had to ride a couple different horses for other reasons. One, maybe he had a horse that got sick or something and he had to change up, or it was lame that day, so he had to change from a different horse from that a week before. But he started to realize that the way he was communicating and the way he was working with the horses, he couldn't do it the same way with each horse. So he realized the way that he was communicating in his body language from one horse to the other didn't work. And he had this moment of, this is like me in school and with my friends, that if I can't, to watch what they're saying or what they're doing, their body language and their expression, if I paid attention to that like I do with the horses, he's like, that's it. That's what I'm not, I need. So he translated that from horses to being with his friends and in school. And he was amazed that's what he figured out. I mean, he just was, so that was probably a big one. There's a lot more. I don't think I want to cry on camera though. I get pretty emotional about some of the stuff that's come through here. I just know a lot of people just don't realize how magnificent horses are. And that there's so much more involved in this than I think some people get an idea that they feel like it's a pony ride when it's really not. I mean, a lot of these are coming, they learn the parts of the horse, they learn how to tack them up, they go through all the same stuff. They don't just come to ride, there's a lot more to it and what they get from it. And you'll have a lot of parents go, my kids can't wait to come to Hooves of Hope, as my special guest is being naughty. So they say a lot of the times their kids don't want to go and do any extracurricular activities, but when it comes to coming to Hooves of Hope, they can't get out the door fast enough to get here. So for a lot of parents, I think that's a huge thing, or even adults, that it's something they really want to come to and they look forward to it.
That's great. Yeah. I know in my career, when I was training horses, people had always asked me about, what's the hardest part. And it's like, the horses are easy. It's the people that are hard. And that's why I went back to study psychology, because I had riders that wanted to compete and I could get the horse trained, but boy, you put the other person on it and it's just like, I hope they come back in one piece, right? So, Ann, I'm going to jump to you next. And this is a question that came in. What's your favorite or most unique tour that it's like choosing your favorite child, right? So
yeah, no, it's really hard to say. I think the thing that always differentiates it for me is like, it depends on who I'm with, which experience is my favorite. And I think the guest also, every individual guest is going to have a different thing that appeals to them. So folks that have a bit more knowledge truly do love visiting the retired racehorses that are stallions and really well known. People who don't know as much about the industry love the full nose boops and seeing the mamas together. So for us, I'm privileged to get to see all of these experiences and be involved in the development of them. My favorite experience is the one that I can see the guests really lighting up for. And that's why we have a whole, staff that is dedicated to, on the website, tool planning resources that are dedicated to finding the right experience for someone who may not know, because it's a really personal decision and there are a lot of experiences out there. So I know that's like the beg off answer, but it's so hard to choose.
you said your favorite is just to watch the clients light up when they have the right.
Listen, we get to work and interact with a lot of people who are so familiar with the industry and who've spent their entire lives working with these horses and caring for these properties and working alongside the people who care for the horses. And as Greg said, sometimes we take it for granted. And so I always tell people, even if you are privileged enough and connected enough that you could go and visit one of these farms on your own without, taking a tour, you're going to go and see a stallion parade because you're thinking about breeding a horse or something like that. If you want to see the potential for the industry, if you want to see the potential for fan development, let me take you on a tour with a bunch of people who've been waiting and waiting and waiting for an American Pharoah experience to open up, or some little girl to get to feed a carrot to a mare, and you will have a whole new appreciation for what this industry can do in offering some openness and telling this story.
Great, thank you. And then Amy, and I think we're kind of rounding out our time, so I'll let you, I want to come back to you so that everybody has a chance to talk about their favorite. Do you have a favorite artifact or favorite item at the museum that just gives you chills?
Yeah, but probably not for the reasons you're thinking. We have some really odd things that in our collection you kind of look at and say, who thought that was a good idea? So the odd things are always interesting, and our visitors always get a kick out of them too. And then there's the morbid things, or the things that lend themselves to some type of dark story. And then there's like our hearse, for instance, which we put on exhibit, feature during Halloween. And then we have, inkwells made out of horse hooves with favorite dog paws attached. And, I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but it's terribly interesting to think about how that came about. And then there's some really beautiful things too. We have some beautiful artwork. You get to see the breadth of the Calumet collection, which is just mind blowing. And also to be able to view 5 sets of Triple Crown trophies in one museum, and the history of the horses that won them and the people who were involved in getting them there. I've got chills now just thinking about those and seeing people's experiences with those when they see them too. So there's a lot. I don't know that I have one favorite right now, but there's a lot of cool things.
My favorite is you come through that one doorway and you it's kind of dark, and you come around a corner and you look up and there's a horse being in a sling being lowered. Yeah, that's right above you. You're just looking up at its belly.
Yeah.
I have one more question that has come in that I hope we can get to. I know we're bumping up against time, and I'll let anyone respond to this since we're kind of coming to the duration of our time. But the question is, so far we've all been talking about the horses as from an industry standpoint, but the question here is, to what degree do you conceive the horses as agents in themselves, and how do you feel that the industry is doing these animals justice, or perhaps may fall short of that? And this is kind of a heavy question. I hate to end on it, but at the same time, I think it's important to ask. And I'll open this up to see if anybody wants to take the lead on it, which of course in my classes always means nobody wants to unmute. But would anybody like to take a swing at this? How the horse can be an agent for themselves, and then if the industry is doing justice for them, or if there's places where we can do better.
I'll take that question. Personally, the thoroughbred business, what I'm a part of, I'm very happy with the initiatives that are going on with the Safety Coalition. These animals get the best of care. I hate to say it, but a lot of these racehorses and breeding animals get almost better care than humans. You look at healthcare every day, and just the people that take pride in taking care of the animals. These are very valuable assets. But the industry as a whole has really looked at safety, particularly with racehorses over the last few years, and really have done a lot of case studies and put a lot of money into making it both safely for the horse as well as their fellow riders and things of that nature. And I'm very happy on the position that the industry has taken. There's always work to improve with anything. You never can stop where you're at, but rest assured that these animals get some of the best care.
I would just tag on maybe from a different perspective in terms of the horse as an agent, which is, I think anybody who works around horses or gets to, like me, tell stories through the horses realizes that the horse absolutely is an agent to itself. And I think gives us a venue to tell stories that maybe would be harder to envision if we didn't have them as a part of them, and would be harder to tackle if we didn't have the central kind of athleticism and giving spirit that so many of the horses do. So I am so encouraged by, and really look forward to, in our work, continuing to allow that horse's agent tell so many of those stories. And I think from what Greg said is absolutely true. These folks are so committed to their care and well-being. And in another way, almost emotionally and legacy-wise, we have an opportunity to do right by them by telling great stories and sharing all of the history of the industry and the culture that has been a part of their own tradition as well.
Thank you for that. And I think with both of your careers, you are engendering the, or cultivating a love of the animal. And the more that we appreciate and value this animal, the more likely we are to help protect them and ensure that they're well cared for. Amy, or I guess I lost Blair. Oh, there she is. Do you have anything else to add to this?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, my entire museum is built on the horse itself. Yes, we include the people who are involved, but it is its own agent in our museum, and we trace the history and the culture of the horse throughout the world. So I guarantee you can go to any country on this earth and find a story about that will bring in the horse or relates the horse to a culture or to the people there. So absolutely, the horse's agent is, yes, I think it definitely does that.
Thank you. Blair, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, so again, I think the horse speaks for themselves in the sense of just how phenomenal they are. I would like to see maybe a little bit more about that people understand how intelligent horses are and how they can be used as a therapy tool in the healing, whether it's an emotional, mental, physical, spiritual side of it, where it's, like I said, you work with a mental health therapist or we're doing our therapeutic riding. I really think that I'd like to see more people understand how horses are used in that way. I think a lot of people in the state of Kentucky see the thoroughbred industry, the racing industry and stuff like that, but they don't see the side of it that maybe a retired thoroughbred could be used in the equine assisted therapy side of it. But I just, it'd be great to see that people can see how much horses can really do healing for others.
Great, thank you. There was a question that was directed to me about my experiences, but the one thing I will add to it is that in my experience, the horse gives you what you give them. And if you respect and if you work with them, it's a partnership. The more love and respect and care that you give that animal, the more love and performance they return. And so I really think it is a two-way street. And I have seen things that discouraged me, but overall, I think this group of people that we have here represent the best of the industry, and hopefully we can continue to support horses and develop this love. And thank you all for your contributions. I see Steve has popped up, which means he probably wants me to stop talking. But thank you all very much. I'll turn it back over to Steve and see what he has to wrap us up with here.
Love and respect. That is awesome. That's kind of the essence of what we think of in terms of culture and bringing people together and learning from each other. So what you're talking about with horses is it's just awesome, and what a great way to end this program. I'm blown away. Every program, every Culture Plus program, I just feel like that was the best one, and this one was like, this is truly amazing to get to learn about so many different aspects of the horse industry through our lens. And we couldn't have done this in a normal year where we have a performance and bring people. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily have fit into what we have been accustomed to doing, which we're going to come back to, but it makes me realize we should be doing more of this as well, these kinds of conversations with our community and our partners. So I want to thank you to, and on behalf of the over 200 people that have been on this program, thank you to our esteemed panelists for sharing their stories. Blair, Greg, Amy, Ann, KatieAnn, Libby, the honor was ours. You can learn more about the panelists and their services and other resources about the cultural aspect of the horse industry on the nortoncenter.com website. We'll have that posted within the next week or so. Our final Culture Plus program of the season is Culture Plus Mindfulness, and it will take place on Thursday, May 20th. We have had a very challenging year, and learning about the practice of mindfulness from a cultural perspective is something I'm sure we can all use. Included on this program will be the spiritual leader and director of Bluegrass Zen, Reverend David Parks, performer, choreographer, and arts educator Ty Cespedes, and multi-Grammy Award nominee, vibraphonist, and thought leader Stefan Harris. Moderating this program will be Aaron Godlaski, who is a Centre College professor and practitioner of health and environmental psychology. So we're really looking at mind, body, and spirit through culture. And so our theme continues on. If you're interested, the website already has the registration link. So just go to nortoncenter.com and you'll be able to find the Culture Plus Mindfulness program. Again, thank you everyone for attending this program. We are very grateful that you chose to be here, and I hope you have a great night. Good night, Libby. Good night, everyone.